We have now Nando again, who came in to give us the final talk of today, which is on distributed peer review and other aspects to keep in mind. Thanks, Nando. See, yes, you want. Oh, okay, perfect. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Carlo. So I will be talking about peer review at ISO, although most of the concepts also apply for the ALMA side. So first of all, an introduction for those of you who are not familiar with the concept. The concept actually is very simple. It was first introduced in astronomy in 2009 by Merrifield and Sahari, and there's an interesting anecdotal aspect of this, that Merrifield started to talk with Sahari about this immediately after serving in the ISO OPC. So he found the workload so heavy and the experience so tiring that he said, well, this is not possible. And in fact, the title of the paper is called Telescope Time Without Tears. So this was the original motivation, and actually is also the motivation as to why both ALMA and ISO moved towards, started deploying on a large scale distributed peer review. As I said, the concept is simple, and actually I think it incarnates 100% the concept of peer review, meaning that your proposal is reviewed exactly by your peers, which in this case means people like you submitting applications for the same round of proposals, as opposed to panels in which the members of the panels are pre-selected and they are not necessarily submitters, and certainly most likely they do not compete for the same resources at the same time. So this can be summarized by the third bullet. So you submit a proposal as a PI, and by doing that, you agree to review N proposals submitted by peers during the same round of applications. And of course, at the same time, you also agree that your proposal is reviewed by N peers selected during the same round. Also, and this was part of the original Merrifield and Sahari idea, if you submit M proposals, not more than one, then you accept to review N times N proposals, meaning that in the case the assignment is 10 proposals, if you submit 2 as a PI, you will get 20. If you submit 3, it's going to be 30, and so on and so forth, which introduces a self-regulating mechanism that decreases the number of proposals per PI. This does not mean that as a team you cannot submit more than one proposal, because as I was saying, this mentions PIs, and even if you want to be PI on 2 proposals, you can always delegate the reviewer role to somebody else in the team, and the idea is the same, which means keeping the number of proposals that you have to review to a reasonable number, so as to ensure a proper review and a proper feedback. In all fairness, we have to mention that this concept was first deployed in astronomy at Gemini for their fast turnaround channel. And it's a small scale, of course, it's an open call, so it's different. And then ISO started with the so-called DPR experiment in P 103. There are a couple of papers out that you may want to have a look at. ALMA has implemented it in cycle 8 for all non-large programs, and this is the largest scale of deployment of this kind of things in astronomy, and I believe even outside of astronomy. At ISO, we have deployed it at P 110, so we have done it for 2 semesters. And in the case of ISO, the distinguishing line is 16 hours. And this number was set on purpose because the statistics show that you have 50% of your proposals below and 50% of the proposals. So it's the median request per proposal. And there is a paper by Teresa Yerabkova that summarizes the results of the first 2 semesters. It's going to be published on the Messenger, is Impress. And the slide here provides you a direct link to the instructions, which you can also access directly from the phase 1 page. So this is the implementation at ISO. It's very similar to the one of ALMA. You submit a PI as a PI 1 proposal, and you will get 10 proposals to review by the deadline, which is typically 4 weeks, means that you have a lot of time to do that. The proposals are distributed, meaning assigned to people using a prioritized set of keywords between 3 and 5, and those are from the same set that the PI is used in their user portal profile. I'll get back to that. It's an important aspect. The PIs can delegate the reviewer role to one of the COI. So I prepare the proposal, you can indicate who else on the proposal should review the other 10 proposals that are coming in. And then the process is identical to the one of the panels, except from the fact that there is no meeting. So you read the proposals, you give grades between 1 and 5. This link provides a direct link to the scale as it is defined. It's identical to that of the panels. At Alma, there is a small difference in the sense that they don't use grade, that use ranks, but in the end, I mean, the concept is the same. Also, what we are asking you as a reviewer to specify for each of the 10 proposals that you are reviewing your self-perceived level of expertise, which ranges from an expert to a non-expert. And this is used only internally to check the goodness of the match between the machine learning, say, association proposal reviewer with respect to the self-perceived. So how well, to decide how well the algorithm is performing. Again, the instructions are provided at that link. Then in the end, each proposal receives 10 grades, which is a factor of 2 larger than in panels. So it's already, there's an advantage, clear advantage there. We form a final average. At the moment, it's kept very simple. They are merged after normalizing the distributions to those of the panels, so that in the end, we merge panels and DPR on the same scale. This is different from ALMA again, because ALMA is going for a full DPR for the normal programs. And then each of the 10 reviewers enters his or her own feedback to the PI. And this is different from the panels, because in the panels there is a discussion that is led by the chair, and then a collegial unique comment is passed to the PI. And this comment is supposed to capture all the different opinions in the panel, which you can imagine is very difficult, if not impossible, to do. So what you get from a panel is an average comment. As opposed to that, in DPR, you get 10 different comments, unabridged and unedited by ISO. So you get them as they were written by the reviewers. So the reviewers failing to deliver will have that proposal automatically rejected. I'm glad to say that in the 2 semesters that we had so far, we never had to resort to this drastic measure. Everybody delivered well in time. And then, as I said, the PIs in the end are provided with 10 independent comments, and they are asked for each of the comments to give us the feedback on the usefulness of each single of those. So by usefulness, I mean how useful is this specific comment for improving the quality of my proposal. And there you have stars that you can give between 1 and 4. And if you are one of those PIs that have not done that yet, please do it. In the next days, we're going to send out a reminder for those who did not. It's very important, because that is the way that we have to measure the level of satisfaction, which we know it was low for panels, and that is one of the reasons why both ALMA and ISO have decided to move to DPR, 50% in the case of ISO, 100% in the case of ALMA. So that's the way that you as a PI, or as playing the role of the reviewer, have to tell us how good or not DPR and the panels. For the panels, we are asking the same, and so we can have a measure, at least at ISO, that we have both systems in place. We can measure the difference between the goodness and the usefulness of the comments that we get. There are here the advantages of DPR. So DPR allows junior researchers to participate to the process. By construction, none of the ALMA and ISO panels and students in them, because the panels were formed with senior people. And as opposed to that, in DPR and ISO, 20% of the reviewers are people with before the end of their PhD or shortly after. As I said, DPR allows a significant increase in the number of reviews, by significant, at least by a factor of 2, but this could be even increased in the future, without increasing too much the load on single reviewers. This, of course, improves the statistical significance of the final ranking. If you have read some of my papers on the correlation between the reviewers, you would see that there is only one solution to that problem, and that is increasing your signal to noise, which means increasing the number of reviewers. Another important aspect is that DPR makes use of a much larger, a factor of 10, pool of scientists. So basically all the PIs or their delegates can act as reviewers. And if you compare the 80 people in the panels against the 800 PIs that we have every semester, that gives you the scale on, and that tells you how better you can match a proposal to a scientific profile of a reviewer, which you cannot do in a panel because of the limited number of people. And this is supposed to improve the quality of the peer review and also the feedback that you get. And the statistics already show that the feedback by DPR and ISO is definitely better than the one that you get from the panels. This, at the same time, and that was the very reason why we did it, has decreased the load on the panels by 50%, which is a lot. So half of the proposals they had to review in the past, which means that their work is facilitated and it puts them in a better condition to improve the quality of the feedback, which was one of the weak points of the reviews, always signaled by the users committee polls. One important thing to be mentioned, and this is only referring to ISO, DPR manages 50% of the proposals, but since they are short, they only manage 20% of the total requested time. 80% of the time is still managed by the panels. And the idea behind that was that the governing bodies didn't want to put all the money on DPR. They wanted to have some statistics before doing that. And so the OPC still manages the bulk of the time. And in any case, it allocates the large programs. Now I'm getting close to the end. So again, and this is the important point for you, the keywords in the proposal reviewer matching. This is based on the match. There's an algorithm that takes into account the order in which you specify the keywords, both in your profile, where you define yourself, meaning I am an expert in supernovae. This is my example. I put supernovae first because that is my main field. Then I worked on dust and extinction, then stars evolution, and then as a last one, I put gamma ray bursts because I have done some work there, but I'm not really a guru in the field. And the same I would do when I submit my proposal. I would try to characterize the proposal using the same set of keywords, which may be in a different order, because now I am characterizing the proposal and not myself. The more this is accurate and the better the match during the distribution is going to be. This replaces the old scheme of categories and subcategories. And I stress it again, you can order by hand, you drag and drop the keywords in such a way that you arrange them in the order you believe it reflects your profile and the proposal. Top is the one that it is closer to you or the science case. Bottom is the one which is further away from that. Now, in the future, and this is the last slide, we use the keywords to produce so-called knowledge vectors, and then we compute the similarities, which is basically the cosine of the vectors in the hyperspace, in which each dimension is one of these keywords, by counting words. And in the future, we plan, and we are quite advanced on that, we plan to use an artificial intelligence approach by which we go one step further. We don't use self-defined keywords, which are limited in number and they are subjective to a large extent, but we use the text of the proposal itself to profile the proposal. So we build the knowledge vector of the proposal based on the words in the proposal, and we do the same with the PIs. We take their literature and we profile them and we build these vectors, and the simulations show that this gives a much better result, and also some already existing examples, live examples. If you are interested, recently there was a conference at ISO called Peer Review Under Review. This link brings you to the web page where some of the presentations were exactly on this topic. Finally, as I said, the fraction at ISO is now set to 50-50 in terms of proposals. There may be an increase in the future, moving to 80-20. Meaning 80% goes to DPR and 20% goes to the panels, which will bring 50-50 the time administration fraction between the two different bodies. The discussion has been started with the governing bodies and they are ongoing. We were asked to stick to the current setup for at least 1 year so that we accumulate enough data before we move on. And on this, I thank you very much both for the attention for this talk and the previous one. And if there are any questions, they're